There's this African country that so little is heard about, but they are one of the most developed.
Mauritius.
Nah, Mauritius can be the habit of my body. It's Botswana. Botswana is. Yeah, welcome guys to the self-taught novice on Date Media. Today's discussion is an interesting one. Silas, how's your week been?
My week has been full of work and more work.
Work, right?
But yeah, very much work. And since like the pandemic is still ongoing, I'm basically indoors. So I try to have it.
My week, just like any other week, since we've pretty much wrapped up service, is so identical. I don't think it's worth reminding the audience of. They could just go back to the previous episode and refer to what I did, and it's pretty much the same. But Obing in particular has had an interesting week. How's it been?
I'm in a happy mood. My week has been Fanta brutal. Is that even a word? Yeah,
I mean Ghanaian English word.
One shout. Anyway, so so the center got some new printers. Courtesy I'm not sure who bought it yet, but they courtesy somebody for the innovation center or for the College of Engineering installed at the innovation center, and I've been working on upgrading them, and I'm so happy about this because for the last year we've had issues with they don't qualify to be called 3D printers. The things that were there that we're printing with, and finally
they were like what, hot glue guns or what?
Exactly, they were hot mechanical glue guns. Yeah. So finally we've gotten proper 3D printers, and I'm overjoyed, and it's so wonderful, and I feel so good. I mean, it's great. Glory be to God.
Okay, Obing, I was trying to be civil. Pull up the Slack page now. if I don't say it,
you sent a message.
The exclamation marks behind it.
All right. Okay. So yeah, it's quite an interesting week. So today's, if you haven't checked out our previous podcast, of course, at the time of recording, we hope you've listened. It was a particularly interesting conversation with a guy from United States who's doing some incredible work trying to create options around censorship and demonetization. So you really need to check out that episode. Very interesting. Anyway, so for today, Silas, we'll be looking at digital sovereignty and a digital scramble for Africa. Yeah. So when we say that, what comes
economy? Digital sovereignty basically mean how we are able to sort of not allow.
Silas, your staff shirt is it only for staff members?
Yeah, but it's more or less like my department. I go because we don't want official to work. So.
Oh, okay.
Silas, you're in the middle of making a very important submission. Please continue.
So basically, digital sovereignty would basically mean like sort of like prevents the violation by allowing preventing the violation of and this is what we can this sends cases to everyone. If you are listening to he sends cases.
This is going to be a very long episode. A very long episode. Okay.
In all seriousness, like the digital sovereignty basically means like safeguarding your data from like people who are prying on the internet to actually like consume your data to probably sell on the black market or use your data for other means that you haven't given consent to. So basically that's digital sovereignty. And digital sovereignty changes relative to digital sovereignty is related to the country or the continent you are in. So if we come to Ghana, Ghana has some rules of data policy as to how companies in Ghana should manage client data, customer data. I think the most popular one that we all know is the GDPR in Europe that basically guides, which is basically a general data protection policy for how consumer data is um, used or utilized by, most importantly, like US tech companies. The US also has their rules and regulations, Asia as well. So all these things safeguard, I meant to safeguard people's data from being preyed upon. Yeah.
Yeah, Sellers, a very interesting school of thought has it that with digitization comes increased security threats, because if you're going to put a lot of relevant information like health records, tax IDs, SNIT numbers and whatnot, passports, you're going to upload it into the cloud or make it electronic. It means although you've presented it with a certain level of convenience, there are attendant risks that come with it. So in as much as you are innovating, the security infrastructure should accompany it. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I very much believe that. And
Where does Africa
during the
stand on that?
Do we stand? Oh, we are sitting.
Okay.
I think
Where's Africa on that?
I made a comment on this in the previous episode about where we basically stand in terms of data protection. And Africa isn't exactly, uh, uh, Africa doesn't exactly have specific rules on digital sovereignty. Like in terms of individual countries, they do have, but in most of the times, these things like the GDPR and all these things are dictated by people who don't live on this continent, and that's because we don't. The tech we are currently consuming is not built by us. It's built by these foreign tech companies that sort of have their own perspective of how user data should be safeguarded. And as such, since we basically are sort of like consuming what they are producing, and we as a people, we don't have like rules and regulations that are like sort of safeguard how these foreigners who consume our data. They basically use what they think is right for their people for us as well. But then currently we don't have, because when you look at so for every cloud provider, they have data centers where they basically store user data. And if you check for the ones I know of, AWS, Asia, and Google Cloud, since they are the most popular ones, most of their data centers do not sit. I think 100% of their data centers do not sit in
The US.
no, do not sit in Africa. I think AWS is
100%. AWS has in South
almost,
Africa. AWS has.
yeah. I think AWS opened recently, like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the major services haven't been transferred yet because I tried
Okay.
like running a service using like South Africa as a region, but then most of their it will probably take a year or two for them to migrate all their services to the South African region. And basically most of their services in North Europe, West Europe, Asia, and basically the US. And those are three
Sellers,
regions that demarcate what
yeah,
rules and regulations apply to the
sellers,
data.
on the issue of digital or cyber sovereignty, right? And having data centers in, let's say, in your jurisdiction or your confines. Let's case in point, this TikTok saga and banning of apps all over. This is a geopolitical spillover into the tech world, right? And we see
Yeah.
it happening. Never at any point has it been more relevant to own your technology infrastructure than at this time, because first, usually when there are squabbles between countries or political forces, the technology is left out of it. Now they've all been roped in. Huawei 5G, apps. I mean, Epic Game, no, not Epic Games. PUBG, They've all been roped in. You understand? 10 cents, you name it. So Africa is obviously always going to be at the back burner of all these events, and we're always going to be the last to really make a stand, so to speak. So, if you look at even how things stand with respect to financial aid, it is actually a picture of how digitally sovereign we would be when push comes to shove, especially when technology is used as a let's say a lever in negotiations. So it looks like we have really dark days ahead because we see Facebook, Google, they are rolling out deep sea cables that are going to link the whole continent, and it's not our infrastructure. And I'm not even talking about the data centers. When it comes to data centers, we rely on other continents. I mean, centers that are sited in other continents. But then, assuming we get into a fight politically, like the way Rwanda enjoys taking on these, these superpowers, and they really crack the whip with respect to technology, it's either, let's say, you are fighting with the West, and the West, places an embargo, and you have to go to Russia or China. But in such cases where all the superpowers are against you, Africa has no backbone to fall on, and that's horrible when you think about it.
But the interesting thing is that Africa, we don't go and fight. No, we're not. Unless you're probably like someone like Paul Kagame who has like guts to push things. Like I mean, like Rwanda is relatively compared to other parts of Africa. There, like tech advancement in Rwanda is huge. I'm not pro Kagame though. Just disclaimer alert.
So you are against Kagame?
No, I'm not against it.
But you're not pro.
Neither for him, nor against. Neutral ground. No, I'm just commenting it since like there's this thing on social media where people say Rwanda is basically like a PR stunt, but then they have more problems than issues. So that's why I had to pass that comment.
But then, I think that whole debate concerning Rwanda being a PR stunt is the same thing like America. Now everybody's saying that America is like what, a Nigeria with a Gucci bag. So is that so? I mean, every country has its problems, but then some countries are worse off as compared to some others. And I feel Rwanda is doing so well internally, and that's what is coming outside as some of the progress that they are doing.
There's this African country that so little is heard about, but they are one of the most developed.
Mauritius.
Nah, Mauritius can be the habit of my body. It's Botswana. Botswana is really doing well for itself, but you don't hear of them. You don't hear anything. So, like America thrives on perception, and Nigeria, surprisingly, given how bad the state they are in, still wants to thrive on perception, like they are the giants of Africa. So that's what you get, especially when.
But low key, I mean, if you take away the fact that they have like a crappy system, like low key, we can see like Nigeria is really flourishing on the global. Yeah, they can make that argument that they are the giants of Africa. Why does that have to be low key?
Why does
I think Nigerians in general are very intelligent, but then their system doesn't go in their favor.
Nigerians are very intelligent.
Yeah, but it's like their system doesn't go in their favor. That's why they flourish a lot, especially in the West.
Yeah, but I mean, like, given the success of companies like Mandela, Flutterwave,
and Hush Puppy, yeah.
Hush Puppy just had to ruin their reputation, but then like,
but then he succeeded for some time, so.
Yeah, I mean, if this saga didn't come out, everyone would think like, I thought that Hush Puppy was like. Even though I didn't know his source of income, I just thought like, yeah,
he was doing well.
Yeah, he was doing well.
You don't know exactly what he's doing, but then he's doing well. That's the most important thing.
I mean, that's I don't know. Yeah. But then on the topic of Africa not really owning the infrastructure part, it's
scary. It's scary. It's so.
I mean, we can't exactly. It will be a problem right now to like sort of say we're still consuming foreign tech and then build our own. Because this like right now we are way behind in terms of technological advancements, and these foreign tech companies are already pushing the frontiers of innovation and tech as we know today. And we haven't yet like first of all we don't even have like the should I say human capacity or the necessary funds to actually push like serious. Example is like
It's at this point that Obin would always come in with a very relevant point, which is we should copy China's route. You take the people out, you train them, and you bring them back.
But
in
they've been
the
training
US.
there for too long.
No, you see, you can't always. I always say that we have to have ideology back in our development. We don't have any ideology.
Exactly.
China is
Yeah.
a superpower. Us, we are jumping 4 year, 4 more for Nana.
but but we are not providing. We are not making it. We are not making a country attractive enough for someone to come back. For instance, like I know most of us have friends who have left Ghana to the US to go and study for university. Most of them, when they go, like even though like they want to come back, given their families here and everything, they usually end up getting jobs. Like usually end up getting high paying jobs because like they went to university. Like you have people working Microsoft, Google, etc.
Yeah.
The compensation they are getting over there, you don't expect them to get that same amount of compensation in Ghana. It will probably take them like a decade or so to amount that same money.
You're being generous with that estimation, by the
way. Yeah, I'm being
take a lifetime.
I just say, and if we don't have structures like that in place, and basically these are people who, give or take, if they were to like not leave the continent, they would have probably developed technology that could probably rival what we see in the West. But
on the issue of data, on the issue of digital cyber or data sovereignty, look at the classic case of election meddling, Cambridge Analytica and Russian troll accounts and whatnot. That was just a tip of the iceberg with respect to what not really owning your tech or not really having, a handle on your tech infrastructure could cause. Now, look at Akufo-Addo or the sitting government hiring a PR firm to do digital form of electioneering or campaigning, so to speak. So much so that some people say they credit 2016 victory to that. And that presupposes that, now if you command the digital space, you actually can influence the effects of of even elections. So if you don't have a good understanding over your tech infrastructure or your backbone, it means those who do can actually determine the direction of your democracy or probably squash it entirely. That is what will happen in Africa. Here, we don't take data seriously. When the EC was compiling the voters register, there was a bit of there was a bit of miscommunication, or let's say friction, between the figures being put out by EC and the Ghana Statistical Service. They said our total population is somewhere around 30.5 million, and EC was saying no, it's less or it exceeds. And that and they were like, how come
they had like underage people registering for
good. And the last time we did a census was 10 years ago. And when we are doing census, we actually collaborate with US agencies. And that is very upsetting for me.
I have a question. Were we supposed to have a census this year?
I think so.
I think we were too, yeah.
So what happened?
The late EC, I think, really set them back. So they'll probably do it next year. We're supposed to have it. And we always...
It's been always on my mind as to like how we haven't had one.
Yeah. Someone said if your data is bad, you can't develop. And that's true. Because you'll be making certain estimations which are far from reality. Look at free SHS. Everyone has their figure. When they come and sit on TV, Felix Owusu-Kwakye or whatever his name is saying that no, this is one figure. MPP, pro MPP forces are saying one figure. If we had unassailable data, there will be no cause for this conversation. We don't take data
But
seriously.
isn't
We
the
don't take our
Ghana
infrastructure
Statistical
seriously.
Service responsible for this? I mean,
Sorry?
since the Ghana Statistical Service, aren't they the ones responsible for this? Like
They
giving
are,
us
but it's supposed
the
to be a
figures.
non-partisan government agency. But whether I like it or not, their funding is not independent. Whoever is in power will determine what they allot to the organization, whether they will frustrate it or whether they will make it thrive. You understand? So when that happens, it's actually a reflection of how serious we take our data in this country. And we don't. You understand?
Well,
Must be.
it's a major challenge, but then it comes back to what I keep saying, that we should have a plan. But then I feel at an individual level, everyone should have a plan. Okay. And your plan should be so ambitious in the sense that look at yourself. What's the pinnacle of growth that in whatever industry you are looking to enter into? And try as much as
When you
possible
say
to achieve
individual, do you mean national level or person?
person at an individual level.
Okay. All right, sure.
Because at a national level, it's obvious that I don't want to sound harsh, but our leaders aren't.
Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest.
This is my chest.
Obeying said it. Obeying said it.
I haven't said
Obeying said
anything yet, though. Our
Yeah,
leaders
but you will say it.
do not have the best intentions for us when it comes to what we want the future to look like. And it's, for me, it's obvious. Like, I'm on platforms with certain influential people in this country with respect to education and the STEM side. And I realize that the conversation is a national conversation now, but everybody's having this conversation in closed doors. And no one really wants to, let's say, speak publicly about it. But then you realize that the conversation ends with, you just look at what you can do, try as much as possible and do it, then go your somewhere. Because if we leave everything to the government, you realize that nothing else will work properly. But then another good thing is that if the private industries are actually developed, or if let's say the privatization is actually encouraged in this country, I don't mean privatization. When I say privatization, I don't mean privatization of government and what's the name of government.
Private sector thriving, right?
Exactly, that's the right word. Private sector thriving. When private sector thrives, you realize that now control of technology, control of business is now moves to the private sector, and this one, I don't know how I'm going to put this, but then it's like the market dictates the growth. So you realize that there's so much innovation, there's so much change in the market because consumer. We realize that over the last years now, it's actually very common to see a sports car, a luxury car in Accra, as compared to some years ago. Not because people have suddenly gotten richer, but then people have now had a different taste in how they want to spend their money. So now people invest, or let's say decide to buy certain luxury goods. You realize that now interior decoration is actually now a very big business, because people have seen that, oh, I can't just build a shelf and put plates and things on the shelf. I need to go to a place like Orca Deco and get certain figurines, or I need curtains, I need a voile and all those things. I realize that has also created different segments within the private sector. So the more we encourage the private sector, the more innovation comes about. And when people realize that, oh, demand for certain things are becoming very high, they'll start to manufacture them locally to meet the supply. Because you realize that, for example, Cerelac is produced in Ghana. Some would think, oh, wouldn't it be cheaper to import Cerelac, like how we import things like, let's say,
Rice.
not necessarily rice. Let's say,
Toothpick.
no, I want a breakfast beverage.
I was about to say Milo.
Kellogg's, Kellogg's cornflakes, or any of the Kellogg's. This is
my bro for saying Kellogg's is a Ghanaian breakfast.
Where is it?
I thought if I was the one to say this, people would do matter. But since the two you have mentioned,
No, Kellogg's cornflakes is common, but then they have other cereal products. But I realize that they import them because it looks like it's relatively cheaper to import than produce locally because the demand isn't really that much, and it's obviously amongst a particular class of people. So you see that once the demand actually becomes much, they'll be forced to produce locally. But then, and the example you gave with respect to toothpicks, I still don't understand why they don't do them locally. But I think recently I saw a Ghanaian startup that is doing something locally with respect to toothpicks.
but on the one of the articles, so I'm actually switching to that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the articles Maxwell shared that had to do with the quest for cyber sovereignty and the terrors that come with it. So basically, we all know that the digital world in the world right now is basically in the hands of a few US and then China-based platforms, and this has actually made people like there's this UN group called the UN Group of Governmental Experts on Developments in the Field of Information and Telecommunications in the context of international security. So they basically like on the topic of digital sovereignty and then cyber security. This group was set up to like sort of provide a benchmark for how people or governments should go about digital sovereignty. And it was interesting to know that they've actually convened 6 times since this establishment in 2004.
6 times?
But, yeah, 6 times since 2004. And it's interesting to note that only 2 African countries have been present for those sessions. So it says that in its initial stages, Sub-Saharan Africa was notably absent from the UN GGE, where the GGE is the Governmental Experts on Development. On that, between 2004 and 2010, only 2 Sub-Saharan African countries have been present. That's South Africa.
2000 and what? 2000 and what?
2004 and 2010.
By that time, when we were not using Goma bunches, cell phones and stuff.
But at least it shows the foresight. Yeah, but at least it shows the foresight they had at that time too.
No, I mean Africa did not have cell phone penetration. You get it?
Oh yeah. That's true. So that says I'm probably getting at 10.
We're just coming around on it. I think smartphones were around 2008 going.
Yeah. But it's very interesting that since that time, only 2 Sub-Saharan African countries have been present. That's South Africa and Mali. They've been the only ones.
Mali.
Yeah.
Mali.
And also, I think if you recall,
you say Mali?
Yeah, Mali.
What the hell is Mali doing there?
Yeah, I have no idea. And Ghana wasn't even present.
Mali went and Ghana didn't go.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean,
but as well, I put Somalia there if Mali went.
Oh, anyway. What's that supposed to be?
Oh, please.
But
anyway,
I don't know if you could pull up the. So there's this table on the quest for cybersecurity. You can pull up. There's a table that describes like sort of like a score that's been given to a certain number of countries on their.
Where's the quest for cybersecurity? I don't see anything. Okay.
So basically, there's this article Maxwell shared that has like sort of like a scoring system for what we term as the digital sovereignty or protection scores for how countries are performing in the digital space. So, if Robin can you read out the figures?
Hey, so we have Ghana. So we have countries. So the columns are country data protection acts or bill, signatory to original instrument, internet penetration percentage as at 2015, internet penetration percentage as at 2018. We have the GDP rank and we have the regulatory quality. So Ghana actually has a data protection bill. We are also signatory to original instrument. And as of 2015, our internet penetration was 25%. 2018,
Horrible.
it rose up by 14% to 39%.
Okay.
And and on the world rank with respect to GDP, according to World Bank as a source, we are 76th. And also to regulatory quality in the world, we are 111. Let's take our brother Nigeria.
You can check Nigeria.
Yeah, they actually have a data protection bill. I don't know if it's an act or a bill, but they are not signatory to original instrument. Their internet penetration as at 2015 was 36%. In Tiana, Yahoo Boys. No. The internet penetration as at 2018 was 42%, which is 14. They also rose up by 14%. Yeah, a 14% growth. And the GDP, according to World Bank, is 24. And so to their regulatory quality is actually lower than Ghana. It's 179. I mean, generally, that country has had so much issues with internet regulations.
Yeah, PayPal, they are blacklisted by PayPal, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, they are.
But then
You
also
can check out South Africa too.
It also shows how smart the citizens are with respect to tech. All right, in South Africa, they actually have a Data Protection Act, and they are signatory to original instruments, and the internet penetration percentage was 51% as of 2015, and it rose by just 4% to 56% by 2018, and also to their GDP was, according to World Bank, is 29. Their position is 29. Also, to their regulatory is actually very high, and it's 87. Yes, Singapore is actually is high, 8. I'm sure China will be like 2 or 1.
Yeah, very likely.
Anyway,
but like it's very interesting that like South Africa's internet penetration hasn't grown by a large margin though. Like it's like just 5%, which I find interesting, given how like well developed South Africa is compared to other African countries. But so relatively in Africa, South Africa is doing better than the rest.
Yeah, they are. They are. Okay. The next article, talking about Google assisting the Department of Defense in sharpening spy drones or military drones. It became an issue. I think Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, am I pronouncing that right?
I think so. Yeah, okay. I mean,
I think he was called before Congress and he was grilled about how Google owes a debt and Google owes a debt, nationalistically speaking, towards the government of US to assist in such programs. But then there was this argument that as a tech giant which collects data from the whole world, it might be in some cases infringing on the sovereignty of other countries if it lends itself to be used for military purposes. Imagine Google, which works in a place like Pakistan, Ghana, Nigeria, using their data from Google Maps and geolocation and all that to sharpen American drones. I mean, imagine if they are manhunting someone like Obin. The work is half done.
The work is half done. They already have access to his phone. The work is half done.
And Google says it is not their duty to help US military or Department of Defense to do this kind of work. It became a heated argument, but they are saying that you enjoy tax breaks from the federal government and all that, so you are what you are because of the federal government. And this is symbolic of most tech giants, Amazon, Microsoft, all of them being nationalized or being forced to cater to the needs of countries. So it means that in so many aspects, if you don't have homegrown tech solutions, we will be caught napping. And that's what's going to happen. Imagine, in a military sense, if Google does cave and lends its data or its data points or sets for military purposes, it means it's a full-blown data war. China, for example, can match boot for boot because they have their variants, data gathering variants, although they are not as widespread as Google. But at least they can defend their cyberspace, so to speak, in terms of a data war. But Africa can't. Can you imagine how exposed we are in the event of, Google lending itself or its technology for war purposes? Can you imagine? It's a disaster.
Serious disaster. Because basically the technology flags images that like based on a certain input. So if the input is kill Obey or bomb Obey's house.
Yeah.
You guys, now this is not funny again. This is the
No,
second
but
time.
it's scary.
Oh, no, why are you using my name?
Knows
Use
where
your
we
names.
all stay.
It's very
Use your
scary.
names. Use your names. Don't
And-
mention my name.
The interesting what even makes it even more global is the way Google is able to detect traffic situations in like literally like
Every
all the major
corner.
cities in the world.
Library.
So
This
imagine
road.
if they want to like sort of reenact a Japan experience with the Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they could easily replicate that without
Easy.
breaking into it because they basically have like every geolocation data in the world right now. Google has access to it to the extent that they're even exploring like the oceans and all that. So
Yeah. And
this
with
that could be
with
very
Elon Musk increasingly, sending up a lot of satellites for, broadband purposes, that could even be weaponized in a worst case scenario because they are building
Yeah.
infrastructure that is based in the United States. And obviously, when it comes to the West, can be turned to the advantage or militarized to the advantage of the United States. And we are just looking on and always happy to be end consumers of these things.
yeah. And the nice thing about it too is that when as an actual Elon Musk project actually would experience like global internet, which will greatly reduce the amount you actually pay for internet tariffs. So
Yeah.
currently, if we are paying like 50 cedis for 50 gig of data, we'll probably pay close to 1 cedi or 2 cedis based on it's just an assumption based on the estimations they are making. We'll literally pay close to
But then your
nothing for
ISP will
data.
be Elon Musk,
Yeah,
not
exactly. So
not Akwesiminta, and that's the dangerous part.
yeah, that's the dangerous part. And in a place like Africa where like to Maxwell's point, where they are trying to like literally Africa is like fertile grounds for them to like utilize all these technologies because given the figures,
Yeah,
internet
lab
penetration is
rats.
very low. So if they're able to develop tech to satisfy this market, which we are not developing by the way, they will definitely succumb to it because like I think back in I think 5 years ago, there used to be a problem with local traders of fabric in Ghana as to local fabric and then Chinese fabric. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you
remember
guys
that.
know.
Yeah. I had a case of importation and counterfeit issues.
Yeah,
Is
and
that one?
yeah, that one. And most local traders were very much concerned about how that seriously penetrated the market to the extent that
They couldn't
people
even
were
tell
more
the
likely to
difference.
buy a Chinese fabric, yeah, as compared to
Yeah,
like
they were flooding the market with cheaper fabric. Yeah.
exactly. And it's the same problem that we'll experience should these products actually penetrate the African market. So and the good thing about it is that at least when it comes to the fabric market, our local industry is like well to do. Unlike tech where like you're literally very you're literally butt naked. So like they could
Say it again,
excuse
Charlie.
excuse my language, but they can drill us anyhow.
We are
No.
handicapped, so they can take advantage of us. Please, there are children listening to this.
But I feel that technologically there would be no reset and no chance for Africa to do it right because time really is fast spent. If you look at the foundations that have been laid and even the mindset culturally of our leadership, where they are not even enthusiastic about or they're not even interested in investing in creating their own infrastructure. The closest we come is private sector people advocating for these homegrown solutions, or yes, data centers, so to speak.
So
So
support your own.
they're not ready to put money in it. Government is lending out huge monies to people who have servers elsewhere to control your voting data, and you think there's hope? This is not politics. This is just me speaking to facts.
Yeah, I very much agree with that.
I think we're a long way from being sovereign as a country, and in the age where data is the new gold, we are going to find ourselves in serious trouble, especially when we continually allow these big tech giants to integrate themselves in the very fabric of our country. You understand? But anyway.
But do we have you have a choice?
We
Can
have a
we
choice.
given how far like given the gap?
Yeah, you can't fight this technological wave. You can't fight it.
Yeah,
You can only
I mean, it's
it
very
at some
very
point.
difficult to fight it.
Really wish
Yeah.
for the best.
Anyway, one last one. Looks like we've spoken at length. One last one. Conduct rigorous background checks on staff to curb cyber attacks on banks. Regional Chief Executive of UBA Africa Limited has called for the conduct of rigorous background checks on workers in sensitive roles. And this came on the back of recent cyber attacks that a lot of banks in Ghana suffered in the light of
In the light
okay.
of
in the light of the coronavirus and the migration of a lot of financial transactions on digital platforms, we saw that MTN mobile money fraud cases were on the up, and a lot of
Yeah, they
banks
were
also suffered.
freaking high. I think I was one of those who really suffered from it because I was getting a lot of spam calls and a lot of spam texts. To the extent that like I wasn't picking calls from anyone because if I don't know them, if I don't see any contact name, I just wouldn't pick the call.
Why is it that the grammar is always horrible? Have you noticed? For the text messages from these fraudsters, they know they type their message better safe, like they bless safe the ball. You
like, put in effort. Like put in effort. Use Grammarly. Like it's not that difficult. Like make it look.
Charlie, this was that hash part two. He
Yeah,
honed his craft.
I don't know if I have some, but like I'm pretty sure I deleted it because like I had quite a time.
But Obin, does the CEO of UBA make a compelling case with this statement?
He does, but then isn't he the one responsible? Isn't she the one responsible for making these employments or these engagements?
Yeah. So she's admonishing them that for all banks, not just UBA, there should be rigorous background checks. But a lot of people feel that if we have the technological infrastructure tight, background checks might not really be important because it could, could do the work on its own.
Well, that's true.
What do you think? What's your take?
Well, for me, it's important that working in a very sensitive institution, the people whose hands will touch the money. I've ever seen that picture of a cat who is around a lot of fish, and like this is what working in the bank looks like. The cat looks so confused with the fish around it. So something like that. You have people who have at least the moral high ground to make sound and how should I put it, Kara?
Are you here?
I'm not here. I'm
Charlie, Silas.
Okay, yeah. So picking up from I mean she is right to say that I don't know the work she has done to contribute to that, but she is right in saying that as well, because cybersecurity is not a major thing. So, um, in the news recently, two Nigerian banks have been hacked, and is all part of the cybersecurity problem we have, where I think they were able to get the hackers were able to get a connection to the bank's database, and then through that they were able to fetch customer data, which were I think over 53,000 customers. Yeah, 53,000 customers, and that's a lot of data
That's
to
a lot
feed
of
in.
depositors' money.
Exactly, and we are basically leaking. So from the news article, they basically leaked people's names, people's house addresses, emails, phone numbers, dates of birth, and basically the transactions that have occurred through their accounts. And I think it's because for some reason, I think someone working in the bank probably took a picture of his laptop or something that he was doing within his workstation, and then sort of put it on social media. And as a result of that, one of
What?
the hackers was able to get access to that information and then lead on that to like sort of get access to your database. And then from there, you just struck gold. And the
Yeah,
data just,
yeah,
yeah. Because more of hacking is basically guesswork. And especially working in a space like that, you should be very careful about what you share online because hackers are basically looking for hints to like actually connect dots. Because most of
yeah.
hacking is about connecting dots to actually make a connection in some sense. And once they get
Yeah.
that, it's very easy to hack.
Ah, yeah. Building up on that, there was an issue about with the pandemic and a lot of banks migrating and working from home. There were certain challenges. I was listening on radio, and there was an account of a certain lady who was supposed to work remotely, but they said they didn't trust her internet safety from home, so she had to she had to make an audio call to the office, and the technician logged in and they extracted the data from her back office with the secure internet connection, and they relayed it to her over the phone because they didn't trust that she can work with her regular
Wow.
Wi-Fi connection at home. You understand? So this is a stress.
I mean, they can't do it. All they have to use is a VPN. Because I don't know if you realize on social media, especially on my feed, I see a lot of ads on VPNs. Because right now I also work remotely, so for
Mm.
anything that I need to do work related, I make sure like I connect to the VPN just to like encrypt my internet traffic, and then through that I'm able to work. And I feel like everyone should do the same, regardless of whether you're using your internet for work or social media browsing. You never know who could be getting access to your account. And recently there was this tweet about how hackers were actually moving screens. So like they're basically on Zoom right now, but then they basically replicate um, the content you see on your screen and sort of steer you towards specific places they want you to click on and actually like log in information. So I could like for instance, so if you're logging
Really?
into your Facebook account, yeah, if you want to log into your Facebook account, they'll basically replicate that same page and then so if you were to log
Mm.
in, obviously put in your username and password. Even though like it basically is the same thing, it takes like a very critical eye for one to like distinguish between an actual Facebook site and then a fake Facebook site. So through that they
Yes, they even
obviously
send
get
you some
access.
emails that, oh, you need to enter password. This thing has expired. Like for example, that media,
Yeah, yeah.
I receive them a lot. I receive
There's a
them.
lot of
Really?
spam.
Yeah, a lot of,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I don't know, but I don't know. There's also this thing where people like, for instance, newsletters and email subscriptions people have, they're able to use that to hack you through like the link you open within your email. So for every email, like or every email you get, you should check the sender's address. For some, if you're not very critical, you probably think, oh, there's probably like a Ghana News Today that is sending you a newsletter.
Mm. Mm.
But it's actually probably from a different website that is just sort of like replicating the regular news you get from Ghana News Today and put it there. and then they'll probably say click on this link to read this blog post, and then do that based on. So for every browser session, there's something called cookies, and cookies basically have cookies are basically like your data points at a particular point in time or at a particular browser session. So if you have opened things like your bank account details and all that, and you have access to it, and your cookies are still within that browser session. Once you click on a link like that, you could instantly get access to all those details to some certain extent.
So Silas, quick one. When a website says this site saves cookies, should I accept or I should not accept?
It's dependent on the site.
Yeah, exactly.
If you try the website, then fine.
What's the standard advised move? Do you always reject?
I mean, for me, I always reject. But for sites like that consume a lot of content.
Exactly.
Like,
it's a gift.
I'd accept cookies because through that, that's when those websites are able to tailor content to see.
Exactly. I give them as a gift. I give to them as a gift. Like there are some websites you to take my information and use it, but there are some websites no. Yeah, for me it's a gift for free content. That's how I see it.
Yeah. But then another thing is that once you accept cookies, like probably like every 2 weeks or every month, if you could automate it, that's fine. You could probably regularly like clear your cookie session so that you're always sort of like starting afresh from a clean slate without having access to your data. That sort of helps reduce the amount of data they collect from you.
Okay. All right. So that pretty much wraps up today's conversation. Unless Obeng has something else to say.
Oh, me, I have nothing. I'm still thinking about my 3D printers.
He's been off for today's discussion. I'm sure the listeners would notice, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm sure they'll notice. But then it's for a good purpose.
Well,
yeah.
Would you want to discuss 3D printing in one of the episodes since you are so in love with them?
I think we should. And for me, I think moving on, I'll now be able to explore it deeply because I'll spend less time trying to maintain printers and more time trying to do actual printing. So now I actually have the ability to actually fully immerse myself in the world of additive manufacturing. So honestly, that's actually why I'm really happy because at first you print one thing, you have to maintain the printer for like 2 hours. Then you print another thing, then you maintain it again. So it's like the stress is so much, but now that stress is going to be lifted off. And even with the modifications I'm making, it will even make working on the printer easier and faster. Yeah.
That's nice. An additive manufacturing nerd. What's a way that is what a breathalyzed way of saying 3D printing. Hey.
By additive manufacturing, you're literally adding layers instead of CNC subtracted. So CNC, you have a block and you subtract from the block. Okay, but this one additive, you're adding on materials to actually get what you want in the end.
Wow, how exciting!
Oh,
he's an additive manufacturing nerd, by the way.
Anyway, well, that's pretty much all I have to say for today's episode.
And that rounds up this episode of the Self-Taught Novels, guys. Today
has been a not so exciting episode, but as usual.
So does it mean that I'm the one? Okay, that means So now what means that I'm the one who has been holding up this podcast?
Not really.
I'll say the flow conversation.
Yeah, I was about to say that I think lack of preparedness one, and the vibe from of Beans and really meant that the conversation was just between Silas and myself. But we moved. Next
No,
time, me
no,
too.
no,
I'll
no.
carry my boring
That's
vibe,
just
come the podcast, boost it for you. Yeah, like that. That'd be all. Yeah, but as usual, guys,
yeah, no, but then we were
whatever
able to really
platform.
we're able to really look at
Jesus.
we're able to really look at a topic that's actually very, very important. So I mean it's educative. It's not every day that your classroom will be interesting. Your teachers have to
He's
bore
trying to
you.
make up for his mess. That's what he's doing right now. Anyway.
All
Yeah.
right.
So whatever platform you listen to us on, please leave a feedback. And like we always say, if you have a topic you want us to discuss, try your best to also bring it to our attention. We are always ready to have that. All right. Silas, any last words?
I guess everyone out there should be critical of internet data, or should I
Good.
say social media data, and anything of that sort. But cyber security is no joke. Even though you might not take it serious, through you using concepts like graph network, through you someone will get access to another person's data just because you were ignorant of something you posted online or some content you shared. So we should all be critical of this, and we should be cyber aware or cyber conscious all the time, anytime we are online. Yeah, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, and that's what Obin would say, don't buy techno phones, right? It's a bad idea.
Hey, are you
The
saying
data
this?
isn't safe.
Yeah, don't buy techno phones. Buy
All right, so that's basically it from me.
Bye.
Peace out.